excited you asked me to be here.
Yeah, well, you are the perfect candidate for this topic of passion and purpose. And as before we hit record, I mentioned to you that I've been a fan of your music. We've even come out to see you when you were here in Carlsbad.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so let's just start with your where you are now, but also highlight your journey and how you got there, and showcasing things that are important to you.
Yeah. Boy, it's been a long journey. Where I'm at the point in my life is I just reached 40 um, in December, and I've already done, thankfully, I've done most of the things I've ever wanted to do, which is hard to say, but at a young age, I had quite the bucket list musically. Uh, and now I'm at this point right now, even the way I feel naturally, like inside, that I'm like, okay, I'm kind of coming down a little bit because as a musician, you always have these things you want to achieve, and it could be any level. It doesn't matter. You could say, I just want to create my own song, or I want to do this, or for me, like I want to travel and be able to play and be able to at least subsidize that income, things like that, off your own original music. So now I'm getting to the point where I've done, to be fair for my age, I've done things for so long that I'm kind of coming down. Does that make sense? I'm not fighting for things. I'm not like, I'm hungry. Hungry is a term that musicians use. You always want to be hungry if you want to get out there. But I was so hungry for so many years that it can be, tough on some people. And so now I'm kind of at this nice, okay, let's do this. I'm just kind of cruising. What do I want to do next? And luckily, I have a lot of people around me that believe in me right now. Meaning, okay, he's had this band for a long time, or he's done this. So now I'm at this kind of really more healthy state of trying to create music of what I want to do that doesn't need to be popular for a certain reason, or anything like that. And that feels really good. And to be honest, that's only happened like the last year. I was still in my 30s, like really, really hungry. And then I thought, well, yeah, but I've already done, X, Y, and Z that most people have ever wanted to do. Why am I fighting? Why am I fighting it?
Absolutely. And you also mentioned that it's a sort of a pivot or shift in your life because you are entering a different age group and perhaps more reflective. It's not necessarily you're not hungry, but you're maybe going more inward.
I think that's great way to put it. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm at the point where, like, even if the money's good for something, is it still even good for me or my health? Right? Like, oh wow, if you travel here and there's gonna be so many people and you'll get so much exposure, and I'm like, I don't need exposure. Like, I don't. That's not what I care about anymore. I care about, okay, how long will I be away from home? Uh, how much personal time will I be away from? I like to really like collect my thoughts now, like the end of the day or the end of the week, and I never used to do that. So maybe that's kind of looking inward and trying to like process better. I definitely bloomed later in life. I was very like wild, uh, almost to the point of like not immature, but I just have fun all the time. And now I like to really process what's going on. Why did I get mad at this thing, or why did I get like too anxious about this? And if I'm gone for an extended period of time and really just losing money for fun, right? That's not fun either. And then the people around me get affected by it, and those people get affected by it too. That's an interesting point too, you know, is trying to take on things that you might not be able to handle, and you have a whole crew around you that you're doing that with as well. It affects everybody. So I think you're right, looking inward, and definitely a new, like, era once you hit your 40s, but it's a young 40s right now. So
Yeah. And I'm of the mindset that age is a number. So you can continually push yourself and remain hungry. But it also sounds like you're viscerally feeling a shift that might not be that you're not ambitious, but you just have maybe new goals coming up.
yeah, lots of new goals, which is nice. It feels kind of like a reset. Lots of new bands that I've got out right now, and I signed, to new projects this year. So maybe that kind of just all worked its way out, where I wasn't putting the energy out there of just playing the same old, show all the time or writing the same old music. Luckily, musically, I am rather multifaceted in the style of music that I can do, and so I kind of shifted directions to a much kind of darker sound, which is what I do behind the scenes, and now that's finally coming to the forefront. But luckily, that all kind of happened naturally. I didn't want to force anything this year, and push it on people. So.
Yeah. Now, was the tempo of your music, the tone or tempo or the vibe of your music in your early days more matching to your temperament then? And is it shifting now? Like you said, it's getting darker. So has it shifted like in energy?
It shifted a lot. I mean, you can hear like, you can hear like the punk kind of edge in our in the early Jason Lee and the Riptides like live videos when we were really young playing in San Diego. I mean, at that point, maybe I was the only one that could even get into the clubs. And the band had to, maybe Tony, the founding member with me, was able to come in, like maybe he was 21, maybe, but most of them couldn't even get in. They had to wait outside and now bring the equipment in and all that kind of stuff. And so you're hearing that, like, we don't care kind of, we want to prove everything, and that's cool. And so that's that kind of sound. Then a decade after that, then we started getting more refined, and we had gotten signed around then, doing Tiki Oasis and stuff like that. And then so that is like its own sound. And then now there's kind of another new sound that I feel is starting to come from that same band that's been around a long time. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. And so for those who may have heard just enough in the intro when I introduced you for the podcast, but if maybe you could just explain a little bit about the genre of music that you started in, and then how it coincided with Tiki Oasis, which maybe many people may not know of.
Sure. Thanks for asking. So I had been prevalent in guitar. I've done that for a really long time for my age, and had started my own EP. Just Jason Lee. This is like a little over 20 years ago. Started an EP. It was surf, like heavy surf stuff like that. And I always had old cars, and I work on my old cars, and that EP that I was putting out just sounds like a Cadillac. Like, and that's what I'm into, is old Cadillacs. But that eventually formed into a live band. And then we started playing all the normal places you'd play in San Diego and stuff like that. And so we started a band that bounced off of me. So it was called Jason Lee and the Riptides. But it was really more kind of surf based and heavier, but it had its own sound. I definitely write a little bit differently than a lot of other people do. I know that. And the band that went along with me in that journey really followed that direction, and it created its own sound. But we did find ourselves just playing bars for 50. We'd be so excited if we could play for 40 people back then. Like, we were just elated. And then we did that for 3, 4, maybe 5 years, something like that. No, longer than that, sorry. And then and then just by happenstance, I mean, I knew about Tiki, I knew a lot of people in the scene, but I didn't like jump in the pool. Because I was like, oh boy, like I'm gonna get addicted into collecting all these really crazy expensive things, because I like to collect crazy things, right? And now, but luckily, so then my ex-wife at the time, she said, hey, I'm gonna be modeling this swimsuit fashion show at Tiki Oasis, and they need a band that can change the music on the fly. So it can't just be your own songs, like start to finish. You've got to be able to change the songs when the girls come out. I'm like, oh, well, like we can do that. That's no problem. We're very versed musicians. And so we did a little kind of rehearsal about, doing that. And then just played poolside like one time. And then that, then that spawned into, 8 years at Tiki Oasis. I taught 6 years of symposiums. just the whole ride, that it just worked. Like, it was weird the way the timing was. We didn't think we'd be playing it again. Baby Doe and Otto came up and just introduced themselves, and it all kind of clicked. And then the monster kind of started up. I mean, does that kind of answer the question? That's how it happened.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool. And you gave me such a great background on it. Now, when you were doing that, like you said, going from 40 people to larger, and there was like this visceral feeling in you. Can you describe what it felt like to like really realize that the audience was getting bigger, like especially Tiki Oasis? I imagine you had a large audience there.
Yeah, and especially at that time, Oasis, like with respects to it, was really yearning for some new original acts. Knowing and learning and helping with the music format there for a while too. You can. We knew we had something original because we don't do cover songs at all. And I'm a writer first and foremost, always, not like a live thing. So we knew we had something that was really cool, and the energy of that we were getting back from people that were traveling in were like, wow, we want to fly back to come see you next year. It was such an experience, you know. So yeah, that hungry word kind of comes back into play again, where we're like, okay, this could be something. Like this is a great community, and we love that we can go play and then go hang out in the room parties.
Yeah.
And then the year after that and on, we started doing the big room parties with sponsors and all of that stuff. But the energy was just, I think Oasis and those events, they had eras too. They have the first one that I wasn't a part of, like Palm Springs and all the early ones, and then you kind of have like a half step, and then you've got the 2010s, which we were a part of all of that, and then now you've got the new one. So that whole, I call it the middle, like here's the spectrum of it, and we were right in that middle where it was like you just had, and the crazy thing was at Tiki Oasis, like at the pool parties, you'd look up and every balcony was just full of people. Now there's so many room parties and other stuff, that everyone has something to do, which is great. But at that time, like I said, there was this like 3-year window if you could be a part of that everyone was just like clamoring to.
Yeah.
The energy was just really cool, and we knew it couldn't be stopped. It's like there's this rule of thumb that I have where it's like, if you have something so good going for you and you have to put so much energy against it, you're losing out. You need to go with the flow of like what something's telling you. Like, hello, dummy, like, bang, bang, bang. And we would have guys in the Riptides who are like, yeah, no, that's lame. I don't want to do that again. And we're like, cool, you're out. No problem. Like, if that's your wish, then you're out. We'll get another guy. And then that's when we got Josh, which is still our current drummer. And he's like at the top, in my opinion, of professionality. He came from our producer and had to learn all the songs for Oasis like in a week. And that was when we were doing like 5 or 6 shows at Oasis. So
Yeah, I mean that means passion right there. And I remember being in so my first year there at Tiki Oasis, I believe it might have been before 2010, but I remember being at a room party, a big one, and just sitting back on one of the couches with one of those cool tiki drinks and just listening to you and your band. And it was a different energy back then. It felt like intimate, but at the same time, you could, like you were saying, you look down on the balcony and you see all these people, and they're part of it. They're listening to you. And
yeah.
I think that it shifted, but at that time it felt like family.
Yeah, it really did. It was the strangest thing to still feel like family, but with like 400-ish people in line, in all the lines for the room parties. It was a real strange thing. You could like yell across to each other at the courtyard, and then if you were one of the lucky ones that could get into the room parties, I mean, I had friends in the industry because I do work in the music industry by day. And they're like, what the hell, man? Like, I can't even see you play anymore because the line's just 90 people deep. And I'm like, I told you, it's like, I warned you about Tiki, man. That's a community. It's a whole nother level, but it's underground still. As big as we all like to think that Tiki is, and it is, you still have to explain it to somebody. Like, you still have to explain escapism to them. So, which is cool. You should be able to.
Now, one of the things that piqued my curiosity, and I've known this about you, but maybe you could go a little deeper, is that you mentioned you're first and foremost a writer. And I just love knowing that that's that multifaceted part of you. Can you elaborate on your writing journey?
Yeah, this is a bit, I don't, because I do so much contractual work, which I'm rather proud of. I do work professionally, so I have big contracts with, or have, and now still do, with television, documentary work, stuff like that. I've worked, for all the television networks as a writer. But I come from a family of writers, and that's really important to me, and it always has been. So as a child, when I was taking guitar lessons from my now passed uncle, um, they're all writers. That's the crazy thing. So we learn music from the writing standpoint and the composing standpoint. So while I do have notoriety as a guitar player and have been able to travel doing that, the irony is that it all comes from the writing standpoint. So if you ever to listen to Jason Lee and the Riptides or some other projects that I'll do, they're always coming from the writing standpoint and not like from the band standpoint, if that makes sense. So I'll make this quick, but it's very important, and it's exactly on the topic of passion for this episode. So my grandfather was a writer in the 50s, and he wrote for RCA, and he was one of those ghost writers. So when you hear like the newest single hit that would come out, he was the guy like in parentheses, and that's really important if you're into music licensing. That's what I deal with. So that means that if you hear Jimmy Dell, he wrote for, that's a big kind of rockabilly singles artist from the 50s, but my grandfather was the writer for him under RCA and some other subsidiary labels. And I just was like entrenched in that, where I was like, well, wait a minute, but your name, but you're not on it. And then, but I'm like, but your name's in the parentheses. Like, what does that even mean, And then so I started learning that about my family, and my uncles followed suit as writers. And then I learned from them. And then I got used to it, which is really weird because I thought it was normal. So I was like, oh, to my friends at school, like, oh, I was like hanging out in my uncle's studio, and they're like, what are you talking about? And we're talking like 5th or 6th grade, by the way. I mean, I was young, and around a baby grand and all that, And then recently, I wanted to show you this because it's talking about passion, right? Check this out. My grandfather just gave this to me. His first vinyl record.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is what I got used to, which was crazy. And then check this out. What's the date on here? He wrote on here. Oh yeah, you ready? 1947.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. He's still alive and he's still writing. And he just gave me ideas like 2 weeks ago on a demo I just did, and I used it and it worked. Okay. So talking about like passion and everything. I mean, it's like no wonder this is where I get it from, because he was cutting records post-war and he's still alive, and I'm 40. It's insane. And then I've got all my vinyl over there that's been pressed, so he's really proud and happy about that we have this, quite this big span of more than half a decade, a century of our family pressing vinyl and having distribution and all that. So I kind of just grew up around that. And so even when I would learn guitar along the way, I'd have to go to my uncle's after school every day to learn. And my parents were pretty adamant about that because I took to it so well. And we would work on original songs too. So at that time, I'd say, well, I really like this song, that just came out, like a popular song. And we learn it, and then you go, okay, well, what else are you working on? So I keep working on my own original music. So yeah, always been kind of more a writer and composer first, and I do full arranging for my orchestra and all that. And then for television work, I do all the arrangements. So I've got a baby grand like in the other room here that I use for writing. And so a lot of people just come over and they're like, oh, you're a guitar player. And I'm like, nope, you're literally just looking at like an online facade. It has nothing to do with it. That's just the live performance aspect.
Well, and I find that so particularly fascinating because the word that I often use in reference to passion purpose when I talk to different individuals is that many of us are multifaceted. And if you were to take somebody just at face value, you never recognize the level of depth, like the story you were sharing with a vinyl and your grandfather, and the fact that he's still around and continues to give you that, I would say, moral support or mentorship or what have you. It is a reflection on that energy that he's got that fire in him to keep going.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, he gets like really excited about it, or he likes to hear like, we just came off of doing Exoticon, so all he wanted to hear about was, that show or what I'm doing in Hawaii, stuff like that. So he's 94, but he's really smart man. But he still has really good ideas. It's like he wants to write. He composed this whole song for his doctor. His doctor is really cool. His doctor is the one that birthed me, ironically, because I was born kind of young. And he's like, oh, I wrote this song for my doctor, but I can't, he can't play anymore, unfortunately, but he has it all here and he can write it out. So he wants me to record that for him, so that's pretty cool if you think about the age difference and the span of what we've been able to like accomplish.
Well, and that's why you're only going to continue doing more. So in the beginning, when you were sharing how maybe you're at a different space energetically, however, the way I see it, it's call it just the new chapter, but it's only going to be better.
Yeah, I guess touching on the original question you asked me too is that I'll be honest with you, and this doesn't look good on myself, but I don't really care anymore. Is that I was a real asshole back in my 20s because I didn't respect. No, I respected. I didn't understand like the value of having that background in my family. So you're just young and stupid, right? You're like, why am I got my own band. You don't need to come to my shows. Like that happens with some people, and it's a real bad place to be in. And now all my professional friends would just say like, oh my God, like are you stupid? Like, do you even understand how lucky you are? Like you're so stupid, you don't even know. And so you have enough professional friends tell you that like you need to harness that energy and like continue that legacy, and then you start realizing like, oh shit, okay, this is a real thing, especially when you get to the level where like your family just gets to tune in on TV and watch your stuff. I mean that's kind of neat, so
Well,
he's pretty proud of that.
and I'm sure they feel such joy seeing you blossom like that and grow. And I mean, not a lot of us can say that we came with the background that probably gave us the stepping stones that we didn't know we had in front of us.
Hmm. Yeah, my parents too. They're really supportive. My mom had me young, which I think helps because our age gap isn't that big. So I grew up on a lot of new wave and goth and stuff like that too when I was younger. But they come to all the shows, which is great. I mean, they were just at Caliente to see us, and Rory knows them, and they'll travel. Like if we used to go play Vegas and stuff, and they would just pop up out of nowhere, like want to buy tickets to the show, and we're like, what are you doing here? And they're like, we got a cheap room. Want to come out and support? We're like, dude, like my friends that live in Vegas won't even do that, and my parents just traveled all the way over there, So that's really cool too. Now, like I said, now I really get that perspective, and I'm appreciating it at a later part in my life.
That is so wonderful. And now I know this about you. You touched upon it. Can you share how the writing part now works with your day job part? Because you've mentioned that while you do the music, and that's the part I've known of you,
Hmm.
by day you have a different gig, right?
I have a different gig in guitar manufacturing, so I've been in that industry for quite a long time. In my 20s, I was with Guitar Center at a relatively high level, then left to go to this company. And so we build everything there, and you can book, design consultations with me, and then I'm the quality control manager too, because I generally have a really good eye for the way a guitar needs to be built and all the facets of a guitar at the highest professional level, very boutique kind of stuff. So that would be if I had it. I do have a 9 to 5, and that's it. But the other nice thing is I get to do all the the videos you see. There's two of us for the company that do all the videos. So I'm always having to write original riffs every week. for all the videos that I do for the company too. So that's always nice because then you're in like kind of a manufacturer setting, and then you get to completely shut off and go, oh, cool, I thought of this new riff the other day, so let's throw that into that video.
That
So
is
it
really,
forces you to be writing like all the time. It's not like, oh, I don't really want to do it right now. It's like, no, that's actually my job. like, like I have to do 2 videos a week, which is great because then I can tie in stuff from other projects and throw a guitar hook in there and whatnot.
so it sounds like even the day job allows you to kind of keep a fluid movement of your creativity in your writing space as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I watched this little short video on Instagram of Paul Rubin. He was the producer for like Beast Boys and all them, and he was saying like, listen, he had a really good perspective, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. And this relates to like energy and stuff too. If you have a job that can even somewhat coincide with what your passion is and what you feel lets you do the things that you want to do as far as the passion is concerned, then do it. You don't have to try to 100% make the passion, your career if you flop. He's saying that it's still really good to have something that, as long as you know that they're separate. So let's say if I didn't even do guitar manufacturing, okay, I'm just going to make it up. And I worked at Home Depot, okay? And if I had a job at Home Depot, we're going to split it down the center. If I knew while I'm working at Home Depot, here's Home Depot, here's music. He's saying that if you knew, at least while you're working at Home Depot, that keeps you level. That just keeps you level throughout the year so that you can work on your passions that you feel makes you who you are.
I couldn't agree more. And I've often tried to find that balance. It's actually really not that easy to find that middle ground where that keeps you steady financially while fusing it in. But that's what I encourage to my son as well.
Yeah, if you can find something that, is the yin yang of it or is both like I do, the both is tricky because it's, because I don't talk about guitars a lot anymore, you know, because that's all I do is like the details of guitars. So if I'm out and about, like at a show, watching somebody else, or like the grocery store, and someone wants to talk about guitars, I'm really nice about it. Just say, hey, I do this a lot, about 70 hours a week total. So you can always send me a message or something when I have, love to chat about it. But I am coming off of a huge day of just like details of guitars. That would be, that would be like same, but I guess if you either found something that was like a yin yang of it, so you feel like there's the black and white or the same, it's tricky. It's a tricky balance.
And do you find yourself, now that you're in a place of being more reflective, recognizing, I would say, opportunities where you can, how do I phrase this, kind of encourage a new generation, see them where they're at and help them blossom?
Yeah, I think so. One thing I didn't touch on was that I had been doing in my 20s. I had been doing a huge series on YouTube for a big company that got really big, and that was kind of a point in my time too where I really, really liked that, where I really took on a lot of teaching, and I had been doing the symposiums, the guitar class symposiums at Tiki Oasis, and then I took that onto a tour. So I did the East Coast and stuff like that, and so I'd like to get back around to it. I think I'm just so busy on other projects that teaching too is. I put a lot of work into my teaching. I don't copy anything. All my stuff, same thing. It's original. So if I were to get back into it, I definitely would like want the free time, but the energy is still there to want to see like the younger generations prevail. I mean, obviously we have to for our future. But I'll tell you this, I've really been enjoying seeing so many newer like surf bands and stuff coming out where they're so young, and different ones that will like open for us or open for other bands that I see on other parts of the country. And I'm like, man, like they're good. Like that's crazy. They took what I was doing on YouTube years ago, and then now they're just ramping it up like to a whole nother level. And that's a neat perspective too, because the YouTube stuff I was doing was so big. I mean, it was in the billions of hits I was getting. So, most of my videos have millions of hits. And I kind of just stepped away because it just got too much. But the neat thing is I still get people that like younger bands are like, oh man, we learned all your videos when we were like a teenager, and then now we have this band. And so that's a really interesting perspective. Like we were touring with the Surfer Jets, they're the girls, they're really cool. And then backstage they're like, well, they're like, we've been wanting to admit this to you, but we learned all of our stuff from your videos. I was like, oh man, like I feel old, but I'm not, because I was doing that at such a young age. I started doing that stuff so young, and 300-ish how to play videos I did on surf music and stuff like that.
Well, I consider you prolific and definitely not old. I mean, 40 is not old, and you've got this entire career that will continually, I would say, unfold into so many levels. So, I mean, the world is your oyster. Now, where are you at in terms of your next vision of how you see yourself?
More projects. I like projects, because like sole proprietor projects that I do. So I do everything, and I'm on a lot of them right now, which is great. And then that's a nice creative space to be, because I give myself deadlines for these projects, or they give me deadlines, or we agree on a deadline. And so that keeps me somewhat focused, but it's also all up to me. And I really like that. It's less, determining factors. I really love self accountability. Like I thrive off of it. I do good with goals. I do good with deadlines. And I can either procrastinate and do everything in the last 2 days, or if I feel like something sounds really good in the first week of a month, then I just knock it out and then do final, mixing and mastering in the last part of the month. But that's where I'm at right now, is using that kind of background that I've had for years in composing and writing, but then tying it back into tiki. So lately that's tied right back into tiki, which I kind of took a step back for a bit because the projects I did were so dark and horror based. That's when I specialize in that, is like Halloween and stuff like that. And now it's finally starting to come over into tiki. So I've got my new band, Dark Entities, and that would probably be like the answer, as far as where I want to be, the musicians I want around me, stuff like that, and some other new projects that are that are coming out.
That's really cool that you've now see the evolution, and you called it Dark Entity, the new band?
Plural, yeah. Dark Entities. Yeah,
Dark.
it's less about me. Yeah. So I write everything, but I don't want my name big on it or anything like that. It's who I have around me. And we did a preview set at Tiki Caliente, and then we just played Exoticon on the main stage for the Friday slot. That was the first time it really launched. So it's like 80s new wave and dark wave meets Exotica, like to the T. So everyone's loving the crossover, because, a lot of people in Tiki used to be into goth or punk and all these other subcultures too, and lifestyles. And they're like, oh man, you're bringing me back. So that's what I keep hearing a lot of. And but it's still me with all my synthesizers, except we've got Marty Lush on vibraphone and a full percussionist with timpani. So it's extremely cinematic sounding, which is generally what I do all the time. Just people think I'm a guitar player.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear that, because I love all that kind of multi-genre and I would say cross-pollination from different generations of music. Now, I know you're really into, just because we've had some deeper conversations over the years, you are really focused on your healthy mindset. Maybe you can share that aspect of who you are.
Yeah, thanks. I get, yeah. I'm really into a healthy mindset nowadays. I've, had a lot of big life changes, and even previous to that, I was just starting to learn about a healthier mindset. and space, like space in your head. Um, and so I'm really into fitness that creates a healthy mindset. Other people could have a healthy mindset for other things, but for me, it had to be fitness because I'm so wired and I have so much energy. So I'm really into cycling, and I ride my bike every day, like religiously, and I do all those crazy big bike rides you hear about, you know. But to me, I like the residual like mental effects and the healthy mind and body effects that it has now because I've done that for, I don't know, 12 or 13 years. And it's kind of like my therapy, you know, it really is because it's not music. No one can tell me what to do while I'm doing it. You know, you're really trying to be safe and focused on what you're doing. But again, it's all for the purpose of like, how am I going to feel at 11 a.m.? Do I want to be clear? Or do I want clarity to be able to start all of these other projects that I have to do? Or if I skip those for like a week, you know, it's going to start compounding in my head. And I just get that really beautiful clarity. And where I live, I have a lot of space around me. I'm on an acre, and so the cycling is really hard around here, which is nice. You know, all the big views and stuff. But I really, and I never used to be this way. Like I never used to understand like, I don't know what, like mental positivity and things like that, or energy, or and then I started kind of like feeling it more, you know? Like as I got a little older, like, man, I like that guy was negative. Like, I don't know if I want to hang out with that guy anymore. Huh. And then the opposite would be, wow, that was a really enjoyable bike ride I had with that person. We got to talk about some real life stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have. And I feel really clear, like clear minded. And then that spirals into itself. So then I would eat a little better. Then I ride some more. Then I'd eat a little bit better. And then I have more energy to make more music. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I am a huge proponent of multimodality approach to living, because as humans, just like the weather, sometimes things shift and you need to be very fluid in how you continually support yourself, but being consistent is very key. And sounds like that clarity for you is coming through some level of consistency around the fitness, right? That's your meditation.
It's my meditation for sure. Just the way I ride, like I have a certain style of riding that would be kind of like figuratively meditative state. Um, and it's extremely consistent. If you do any work with me, you're going to have to understand that things are going to be consistent as far as, you know, like rehearsal times, you know, all that kind of stuff. I definitely work off of, I leave the house at the exact same time on the bike. Each ride I do has to have a certain time length to it. There's like a rhythm to it. Probably comes from music, you know, and all that. And generally, I mean, you know, I like to shake it up a little bit, but I'm a pretty habitual creature that at least lets me know like how I can stay on track.
Yeah,
And that's go ahead.
I don't know. I just, you spoke my approach to life is s- appear to feel more sane, if you will, when I'm when I'm structured. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are, you know, like they're like anarchy. You know, they do great that way. But I think generally in our high-paced life now, the way everything is, I mean, structure can definitely be a good thing. I definitely don't like to put that structure on other people. I think, you know, that's kind of healthy. Uh, you know, like it's like I learned this just because I lost weight and through cycling and found that to be my muse and my way of a healthy mindset. It doesn't mean that's everyone's cup of tea. It's a lot of work actually, and unless you really like, you know, burying yourself into the ground to the point of mental clarity, you know. And so nowadays I just say, hey, you know, I'm here to help if you want to get a bike. And like Holden, I'll make, you know, this kind of connects to the tiki scene, but Holden, the owner of Tiki Farm, you know, I mean, he just messaged me one day and he's like, hey, I'm getting a bike. I need your help. I want to know what bike to buy. I'm going to buy this bike. What kind of riding do I do to lose weight? You know, and we just Facebook messaged like crazy for a week or so. And he did it. He like followed my little plan to a T as far as what routes to take where he lives. And I said, show me your map, you know, and I said, you don't want to do that. You're not going to lose any weight doing that. That's going to be fun, but you need to hit these hills and you need to go, all that kind of stuff. And he did it. And it's like I see him a year later at Tiki Way. He says he looks like a different person. But the first thing he said to me was all about this. He didn't say like, oh, look, wow, look at this. Look at me. No, it changed him here because he could tell he was like bogged down. And so that's
Well,
when it's neat to warrant, helping somebody out when they reach out and say, oh, wow, you know, you look like a different person now, or you sound like a different person. I'm ready. I'm going to get a bike. And I'm like, wow, okay, he's actually ready. Like he's like bugging me about it. If he's bugging me about it, and if you know Holden, he's busy. Like,
yeah. Well, and you and I spoke around the time when I think it was a couple of years ago around the bike thing. And when my mom passed away, I was in this really dark place for a while. And one day I took a yoga class with a girlfriend. And as we were walking out, I saw the spinning bikes. And I thought, you know what? I've always loved music. And I used to do spinning before I got married. I would drag my husband to go spinning with me. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take it. And I was addicted. And then fast forward a few years later, around the time after my mom passed, I started to really think I need to get back in shape again. So I bought one of those fancy bikes. And it's been helpful. I'm multifaceted. So sometimes it's spinning, sometimes it's swimming, but it helps me clear my head.
Yeah, no matter like what it is, as long as you're like in the motion of it, and this is my opinion, but as long as you're in the motion of it, like I know, perfect example, right? Like I was going to get a hair appointment the other day, but I thought, you know what? I got 20 minutes for the gym and it's on the way. I'll just do it. And as I'm leaving, there's another guy that we just kind of crossed paths and he was walking in too. And I said, I just made it a short one, but I'm here. And he's like, same thing, man. Like we were usually there for a long time at the gym, but we know that it's like, okay, it's still a Saturday. We could be out partying at the beach or something, but we're still getting our little bit of a workout in just to say we did. Like just to say, you know, we did it. It's kind of a cool thing. It doesn't, you don't have to deplete yourself, right? Like even if you did a few laps at the pool, you did, 15 to 20 minutes on the bike. I'll do 20 minutes on my indoor training bike all the time. People are like, oh, I bet you went and rode 80 miles today, didn't you? And I'm like, no, I did 20 minutes. I don't need to do 80 all the time. Like 20 minutes was perfect for today. I don't know. I like that little stuff, little wins.
Little wins. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from this mindfulness space is that those little wins add up and consistency adds up. So for me also, in addition to fitness, my basis is meditation. And sometimes I can meditate for longer, sometimes short, but the key is consistency.
That's awesome.
Now, I think of music as one of the many modalities that helps me get centered and feel peace. So what's cool about your life is that music is what you do.
Oh, that's all I've ever done too. A lot of people don't understand that. Like they'll go, oh, I love when I can get away and do this, and I'm like, that's it's just kind of what I've known. It's kind of hard to explain. And I didn't realize this until a couple of years ago because I've been in both of those industries for so long. I didn't put it together. I just thought, oh, this is my career path, things like that. But it's kind of neat because even in my day job manufacturing can get stressful. You kind of have to have like the energy and the anxiety almost for it. And I do a very minute quality control type of managerial position. But at the same time, every time I'm doing one of those guitars, I still kind of strum it and play it. And so I'm still making, I'm still making like 9 seconds of music, like every 10 minutes. So I guess kind of touching on what you're saying and what you're touching on too. I mean, it has to be therapeutic. I have this rule, okay? I don't have a rule. It's a rule, by the way. But I have this thing that I tell people a lot when they want to argue with me about music, okay? And music is subjective, and we can all have our opinions. But there's the factual side of energy that's moving in the air at all times. This is not some fun, cutesy topic. It's a real topic that people don't understand that they're experiencing every day. This can relate to the energy of somebody and their vocal cords, or the music or the band that they don't like. I'll make it short. Someone says, man, Dave Matthews Band sucks. Well, they don't really suck. I understand you might not like their energy or the way they write or the keys that they write in or the timbre of Dave Matthews. No, they just suck. Well, I'm sorry to say that they are careered for the rest of their life and their grandchildren, probably by not sucking. Except it's the same type of thing that you can describe to somebody that if you and I are having a good conversation over a drink and someone's timbre and their natural like spirit and their energy sits right next down to you and I at a tiki bar, and they sit down and they just put that negative energy right there, or that negative, excuse me, the negative energy in a room, that's a real thing. It's what we're in tune with. It's the frequency that we're tuned to. And that's kind of the beauty of subjectivity of music. You're entitled to hate that band for certain reasons. And you're entitled to love, one song from one band because it's just striking like a note with you. And so that's a thing of how music is energy all the time. You can look at wavelength in water, the way they do tests, and all of that. And that's purely showing you the way we don't see it all the time. The way my voice is traveling across the room, or how my energy, a lot of times my energy doesn't work with certain people. I forget what type they are, but it doesn't work. So then nowadays I have to learn, okay, I'm going to come down a little bit, like it's a little bit too much energy for them, which is fine, like I'm doing right now, right? But I'm just touching on, how music is in our everyday, even if you don't know it, the frequencies and the music, very important. And it's there all the time.
And it's so strongly connected to emotions, because emotions are really just the energy that's moving. And then when we feel something, whether it's something sentimental, or let's say you're listening to something that someone you admire created as music, it touches on you on a very visceral, deep level. And that movement of that music shifted your energy. Like it could, maybe you can share like something that you really love, some piece of music. How did it affect your heart?
It makes your heart feel full. I deal with a lot of sentimental stuff. This is why we cry with music, especially music and film. It takes the music to wrap up what you're seeing on the screen as well. And a lot of times the music can set you up for what that scene is. And it takes a good writer to be able to understand that too. But again, this is why we cry with music. And you could cry because a certain piece touches you. You could cry because a family member that you lost, you heard that song 40 times that week when that person passed. Then you don't want to hear it anymore. Then you get reflective, and 10 years later you hear it, boom, you cry. You can't argue that. I mean, there's no arguing against it. You see someone, I'll see someone like in my seat, I'm on a date, she's crying. Wow, this is an important piece of music to her. I had no clue.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I find that music is such a deep connection to spirituality. And it doesn't matter what kind of music, although like you were expressing, the energy might be different, and the way you perceive that energy may be affecting you differently.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that we do as writers, if you're like a prolific writer, one thing I specialize in television is we write to mood. You can become like a mood writer. You can become like a literal writer where they say, we just want something to sound like this band. So you can do that. But generally for about a decade, what I did was I was a mood writer. And so I would spend a whole week like writing around sentimentality, death, joy. So if you know how to write in those subcategories, you're a very prolific writer, but you're also very moody, and you have to be in tune. So that's a really weird thing. So talking about, the spirit and the energy and all that, you have to kind of get into that mindset. I mean, imagine watching like a death scene. I'm serious. You're watching a death scene and you have to create you have to create the music that predecesses that from a Tide commercial for detergent. You have to, and it makes you get really weird. In fact, it was taxing on my marriage, to be honest, because you're hearing it like all the time. It's cool if something's like fun and it's a cool show I'm working on, but generally I was getting hired all the time for sentimentality and death and things like that, or shows with mediums on them, stuff like that. And so you have to get real moody, but you become moody. You can't not be like a moody person in a sense. And I mean moody in the good way. You start to like get into it, and then so you're writing this really slow piano stuff all day and all night, and then you have that like that temperament like all week. You're like, oh hi, like how's your day going? And they're like, what's up with you? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just on the show right now, and every night I'm writing the craziest, darkest, prettiest stuff too. Pretty goes well with death. It creates melancholy. So that's a lot of yeah. So a good writer needs to be in tune with those energies. The producers know right away. You'll get let go, after a few attempts if they're just like, no, this is cool, but it sounds kind of copied. And so the team that I was on for years, for Shark Week, History Channel, all that, we were a lot of the same writers doing everything. There's like 10 of us that could do everything, and I kept getting hired. We would joke because we're all so moody, it's like, and it can make you kind of weird, like, shut up, man, you're very passionate, but it's that passion you have to learn how to write music to somebody else's life.
That's amazing. I would never have known that there's that almost like two layers of skill sets, the writing and the music, and then matching it to the tempo, like you were saying.
You have to be very sensitive to it. It took me like 3 or 4 months, and I developed it like really, really fast. Thank God, because probably it's in my blood to do so, like as a writer. But I saw so many people just come in the scene and into that legal side of the industry and get let go because it would just sound so sterile. And I would learn to harness that. It got crazy for a bit because I could harness death. Um, when a loved one would pass, I would immediately start writing all the time, and I got that stuff into TV shows just because I wanted to see it move on. I had this ideology, I still kind of believe it, that like I took the energy from a family member passing, I wrote a song in the moment when they died, and I feel like if I got it out there, it like kind of kept spreading, like it transcended.
I can see that. I mean, you and I are around a lot of visual artists,
Yep.
and I can imagine some of the more prolific ones you and I have come across in that tiki space. What their inspiration was probably in the moment of something is happening, and it translates so well because it's energy.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to cite him, or Norm in the scene. He's uh, just amazing for that. He just has this really good energy, and I'm like looking around my dining room for a piece of his. I think it's in my studio, but more importantly, he has this really. You can feel his energy that he does pieces that are like in the moment, and I'm like, where'd you? I like point like where'd you do that one? Oh, that's my friend of mine and got in an accident. And I'm like, wow, like he's literally doing pieces on life events, and then he did a really beautiful piece for Andrew, Mr. Tiki Head, uh, unknowingly. I mean, just kind of brought it to me at a show and said, here, I did this piece for you, and it's him playing the bass player's bass, and I mean that would be it as far as what I've seen in the moment of an artist like jumping in and taking that energy and making something of it, or making new art from an artist that passed. Um, but I don't know. I'm not an artist in that sense. So I wouldn't, I guess I'd have to go around to the different booths, like at the tiki events, and be like, wow, that's a deeper looking piece. Like, I wonder what that's about. I should ask more. Hmm.
Yeah, well, you're just shifting the lens from music and listening to viewing, but it's uh the same sort of concept that you were describing, right? Like about the mood.
Yeah, it's totally about the mood. Yeah. I mean, nowadays I kind of just like getting into those mood conversations or having a deeper conversation about something on over a drink or on the bike or
Yeah.
whatever.
Now, just wrapping up, you've given me your journey. I'm so fascinated that you came from a writing background because of your family, and then having music from it seemed like from a very young age in your life. Where
Mhm.
do you see yourself maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, not only musically, but perhaps in the mindset space?
Oh boy. Yeah. I try not to look too much into the future, but I do like to have goals. So at that point, I'd still like to be doing just a few shows a year, but really still focused on um, royalty writing and stuff like that. So if I can keep plugging away at what I'm doing, have that as like my latter part of my career in licensing and royalty writing, and then that way I can kind of pace myself. And then at that point then it's the point when I really want to work with like younger writers and stuff like that, and do some writers groups. Those are really cool. I used to be a part of writers groups in television, so we bounce ideas off of each other. So I'd like to get to the point, 5, 10 years where I could be doing writers groups. And I mean, yeah, if you think about it, I'm 40 now, if I'd still be late 40s and being able to do royalty writing and that kind of thing, I'd be pretty happy.
Cool. And in terms of your mindset and mindfulness, it sounds like you're only expanding more into your um receptivity to that I would say that space, understanding how to keep your mindset positive.
Yeah, I'd like to think I keep progressing with it. I mean, we all would like to be right year after year, but so I think I'm on a good track. You know, uh, hell, I could even see myself like doing therapy. I mean, just for the sake of it. I mean, with a crazy life and busyness and all that, I would love to take that on too and bounce ideas off of a healthy mindset and that too, to get like reflective. But as far as looking inward, like you said, definitely moving on a nice path of you know time management and then inward reflection. How did I like that? Like, nowadays I'm like, how did I like that event? Like, what did I take away from that? Was some of my energy just like, taken, or did I give too much energy, where I'm zapped too and don't have enough energy for the next show, you know? So definitely see myself moving in that direction of just being very mindful of my own safe time and headspace too. To that way, I'm nicer to be around too. Because like I said, I can be really like I'm a workaholic, so I don't want to. I don't want to continue on the old path of workaholic, and I rather keep moving on the path of like healthy mindset creates better music. So let's turn the wheel this way. All right, let's just go. See, like that.
No, I love hearing that. And I love the fact that it's something that we both consciously recognize in this conversation. Now, just one last question, because you mentioned uh your I would say natural talent for writing, as well as a passion for it, and reflection going inward. Do you journal?
No, I should. I had a partner once, and she said you should journal. You do so much. I could see you journaling. She got me a journal. I got my nice pen. So I should just keep up on it because my grandfather, the writer, he's been journaling like crazy in the last part of his life, and he keeps telling me he wants me to read his journals. And I thought, well, okay, so that's it. Yeah, I should. I should.
Yeah,
Enough people around me are telling me,
yeah,
that I should journal and
yeah. Well, you mentioned therapy, and I'm not often the biggest fan of talk therapy, because
mhm.
I feel like sometimes there's so much missing in the context of conveying things to another human. But
Yeah.
when you go through the exercise of journaling, even if it's short bits, just like anything else, consistency, you will find yourself revealing things to yourself. It's like your own intuition will become your best friend.
Oh, I could imagine. I could imagine myself reading something from 2 weeks prior, and I'm like, when the hell did I say that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jason. I hope I can get you to come back again, because I truly enjoyed this conversation, and maybe we can talk about some new projects that are coming along, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
And
of course.
yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is a really, really good, deep topic to talk about. That it's really great that you've got more artists coming on and talking about this. Really cool that, you know, not everything has to be about just the base level of art and stuff. There's a deeper purpose behind all of us, right? So really cool that you're allowing a platform or having a platform